All right, so today I uploaded a video and this is the first clip. This is the tutorial for that first animation. It's geometry nodes. We are going to make some of those individual assets you saw in the video. And then I'll show you how to edit in the Blender sequence editor so that you don't have to use Adobe Premiere because you have to pay for that. And I don't want you guys to have to pay for things because you're paying for Patreon. I'm not evil. I don't know what I'm doing. So we're gonna just show you how the sequence editor works. It's very simple. And then we're gonna cut that into the thing, do the thing, make the thing, and then you can use it for whatever you want. So let's get right into that. Now, I know Blender 4.0 came out today, but I'm not using it yet. So I'm using 3.6. But it's the same. It works the same. I know it's not the same. It works the same. All right. So first thing I did was I created all those little assets, which is, I'll pull it over here, all of these guys. And on this Patreon post, there are 2 attachments. So far, there should be 2. There's going to be all of these guys. So there's going to be a zip folder. And then if you unzip that, it's going to have 2 things. It's going to have this, which is the compiled version. So if you don't want to do all this asset making, you can use the one that I made. And then if you want to go one extra step and you want to sort of pace them out at whatever pace you want, there's all these individual pieces, but I'm going to quickly show you how to make some of these. And it's really just sort of like freestyle Blender. For example, I wanted a circle. So I went ahead, gave it 120, so it's perfect. And then I went to the top and I rendered them at 1200 by 1200. So I got my camera, actually, since it's already pointing the right way. And then we'll make it 1200 by 1200. Again, I always say again, even though I didn't say anything. So this is sort of like freestyle, whatever flat graphics you want to make. Because the whole idea, and I'll kind of click through these, they're very like standard flat graphic design assets you would make as a designer. Very simple stuff, but it's meant to be very simple. It's not meant to be complex. Even this is almost useless with this process. And like that's a sphere with a layer weight on it. Actually, we'll make that one because that one looked maybe the coolest in this process. So what I did was I went in Eevee to make it as easy as possible. And then I made the world brightness black. And then I gave this an emission. And then got it pure white. So when I render it, it's just going to be a black and white image. And that's what you want. I mean, I made mine red, but it's going to see it as that, as white anyway in terms of value. And then what you can also do is say, let's get a flat plane. Then scale it up. And then give it that material. And then what I did as well was play with a little bit of procedural stuff. And I'll show you this setup. If you're not comfortable with procedural materials, I'll show you the setup to kind of goof around with some shapes. And so get a color ramp. And we'll plug that into the color. And we're going to get a Voronoi. And then make sure you have the Node Wrangler add-on enabled. If you go to add-ons and type in node, it's going to be right there. And then hit Control T, use the object coordinate, plug in color. So see that? And what you can do is just bring that color ramp in and now you have another asset. And then what's fun is you can take the random off and then maybe like do 4D and then, you know, play with that seed value. You can also use distance, which is going to be a gradient. So I'm going to flip the color ramp. And that's how I got dots. And then you can use a constant to make them more of a hard edge. And see, I can make them smaller, bigger. I don't know why it acts like that. But so that is sort of the whole process. Then if I were to render it, bam, black and white image. Another thing that is really great for this that just looks really, really nice is fonts. And so what you can do is go here to the text man, hit tab, and I'm just going to go like that. Okay, so now we have this. Then I'm just going to hit G and move it and say we'll just scale it up just to show you how this looks. hold on, let me go back to just the regular white material. And then you can go here and play with fonts and go out and like search for Dingbat fonts specifically. So let me go to the bottom here and like, you know, that wasn't a Dingbat. So I'll go to the bottom here. Let me find it. I swear I have one at my access. Here's one. It's just Dingbats. So if you Google, you know, cool Dingbat fonts, you're going to find cool stuff like this. Very random. Dingbats are just meant to be like a big mess of symbols. And then what you can do is just start exporting them out to a folder. And so in my case, I made a bunch of these guys. Oh, I did promise the gradient. We're going to make the gradient and then we're going to move on. So what I'm going to do, go ahead if you want to make that cool gradient looking one. I'm going to get an icosphere and then just subdivide it really nicely. And then we're going to go to shading. I'm going to give it a new material. I'm going to delete the principled and get an emission. And then we'll go here to render view. And we'll get a color ramp and a layer weight. And then we'll use facing. I don't really use for now that much. And then you can play with this, and we're going to use B-spline. You can have a whole lot of fun there. You can bring up that strength to make it look cool. And then you can do stuff on top of that. Also, what looks great, here's another tip before we move on. Another tip for making these really cool assets is stacking different effects. So I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to bring this up. I'm going to hit Tab and then Subdivide. And then we'll do a wireframe. And then we'll just give it another emission. Okay, and then maybe we'll make that thinner. And then when you throw that into this whole process in geometry node, you're going to get really cool things. So you can stack, make a lot of really cool assets, and then go ahead and export them as, you know, individual files into a folder similar to this. Now what I'll do, now let's go here to the Blender sequence editor. So let's just open up a new document, hit this plus icon, video editing, and then video editing. It's going to bring up this full new window. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag up here and make it the size of those assets that I created. And then I'm going to navigate to my folder. So here's all of my assets in the folder. And then I'll give you a little cheat code. I'll just tell you exactly what I did. So I'm going to drag this in and I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then hit K to cut it and then delete. And then we're going to get another one like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, K. And then that will pace it out pretty much the exact speed that I did. And so we'll bring in another one. Let's do the never one. Okay, and then I'm just going to add a bunch, then I'll show you how it's paced if you do all of them in increments of 4 frames. So here it is. That is the speed. If you want to do it slower, you want to do it faster. But we are sitting at, what is this? 25 frames. And so right down here, you would specify to be 25, actually no, 24. 24 frames long, so you can see how this just loops endlessly. So that's the loop. That's what you'd export, and it's very important to remember how many frames it is. If you'll notice, again, if you don't even want to do this, and you just want to use the video that I made, I said 126. That's because this is 126 frames long. So I made it in the title just so I never forget it. But again, if you're following along and wanted to edit yourself, go here to PNG to FFmpeg video, encoding to MP4, and then we're going to go from medium quality to perceptually lossless. And then, of course, go and select where you're going to render it, and then render animation, and it's going to export out your video that you'll now be ready to throw into Blender. So this is part 1, the asset creation part of the lesson. I've actually never used the Blender Sequence Editor before, so I had to learn like K is the cut. So if you want to do simple stuff like this, the Blender Sequence Editor is great and it's free. I didn't want you guys to be excluded because of the Premiere stuff. So onward to part 2.